What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. We're back. After a week away, we did a combine preview, and now we're back with the combine. We're one day into the books. We are currently live watching day 2 here on a Friday evening at 5:00. But Scott, my man, how are you?
Doing all right. Got a little COVID virus going through the house, and I was telling we were talking off air. Not that I could remember 5 minutes ago what we talked about, but man, the COVID fog thing is like, wow, is it real? So, yeah,
It's not out of you.
Yeah, just the memory stuff. Like, and I'm getting older, so
I would say that might be age.
Could be. You never know. I got something to blame it on, though.
Right?
No, things are good. Overall, it's good. It's good. I'm happy that we're at the combine, and we got free agency kicking off, and it just seems to be. We've talked about this, so fast this year, but it's all good. How are you doing?
I'm good. It really hit me this week. Like, yeah, we are, approaching the draft quickly. It is approaching quickly, and I'm starting to feel like days are flying by. And I don't know if it's because it's staying daylight a little bit sooner now or a little bit later now. I don't know exactly what's going on with it, but just watching these guys go through the gauntlet right now, and man, Quinyon Mitchell, so fluid out of Toledo. He is just having a phenomenal combine. He ran a 40-yard dash in 4.33 seconds. Like, just
pencil him in. You might even put it in pen. Atlanta, I think, is his floor at this point, which is crazy. But it's interesting. Like, how does a dude like that? And I think he's from the Georgia, Florida area. How does he end up at Toledo? No offense to Toledo, but like, how does that happen? He's an elite guy. He's an elite athlete.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's something on like grades. I don't know if it's something, one of those where he's staying loyal and true to the team that started, following him first. I don't know,
Yeah, I mean, maybe he fell in love with the coach, and wanted to be coached by that guy, and he's at Toledo, and it just is. That's where he's been. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, he was a 3-star recruit.
Yeah, it's just he's a dude. He's a fantastic football player, and I did not expect him to test like. I mean, I thought he would be fast, but 4.33, really? Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I thought, 4.45 would be plenty enough for him to be solidly in the top 15. But this was that was a great time for him.
Yeah. No, he fell under the radar. I mean, the only really big D1 school that looked at him was Illinois. He had like Florida Atlantic and stuff like that, but nothing crazy. And I don't know. I think he just remained loyal to Toledo, and I think it's one of those where I think you got to kind of honor a player like that and really move him up your draft board just off the loyalty aspect, knowing that he could have probably entered the portal after all of this production. I mean, he had 46 pass deflections in 2 seasons. I would have been stunned had like a Penn State or maybe even Ohio State or Michigan State. I mean,
any of those places. Yeah.
Yeah. Wisconsin, like somebody in the Big Ten, I feel like would have easily scooped them up, and certainly within like the ACC, like Wake Forest, Duke. I don't know, but no, he's a great player, and he's definitely had a great combine. I mean, we're only a day and a half into this, so just looking at yesterday, Dallas Turner blew it up, Byron Murphy blew it up. Just reading the results from yesterday, anybody that really caught your eye in any way or any number that really stands out to you? I know for me, like the Dallas Turner stuff is just ridiculous of what he's able.
It really was. It was remarkable. I know we talked offline about this, but we'll tell everybody anyway. If you think about Chop Robinson's workout. He had a good workout. Like he had a really good workout. But if you put his workout together with his measurables, you get a picture of what a player plays like, and it's perfect. It describes his game to a T.
Yeah.
And meaning, obviously an elite first step and great quickness and all that stuff, but he has very short arms, and I don't think he uses his hands very well. So you can see in his game that if he doesn't defeat a blocker instantly, he struggles to work through contact. And you can see the short arms kind of being a factor for him, right?
Yeah.
So with him, the picture is, all right, this guy's going to beat you with quickness and speed, but he's not a real physical player. He's more of a finesse pass rusher.
Right.
And then there's Dallas Turner, who's got, he's shorter. He was shorter than I thought he would be. Crazy long arms. Right. And powerful. And if you look at it, and it paints a picture for his game too, because he pulls out the one arm bull rush move all the time. And it's like, well, yeah, you would do that if your arms were that long. You could do that. So it's just funny how it kind of works. Sometimes when you get measurables and you see a little bit of speed, quickness, and explosion numbers, and how you can get that mental image of what a player looks like. Yeah, I thought Braden Fisk from Florida State had a great day. The shuttle number for him, I think he was quicker than Aaron Donald's shuttle number, which is nuts. I think Aaron Donald's 20-yard shuttle was 4.39. The short shuttle was like 4.39. I want to say Fisk ran it yesterday in 4.37.
You are correct on Fisk. I'm looking up. You are correct on both. Nicely done.
So that's, it's high praise for a decently sized player. Obviously, dude can move.
Yeah.
It's just, I should be saving this for later for you. Let's stop talking about this. That's a tease in the business. Stay tuned for more on that. I thought overall it was a good day for the D-line guys.
Yeah.
I really would have liked to have seen a player like Jerzon Newton work out. I know he's got the foot problem.
Yeah.
I like what I saw from Byron Young. I think those are two guys, and then you throw in Fisk.
Byron Murphy.
Yes. Did I say Byron Young? Byron Young. Yeah. This is what's going on. Did I tell you for the longest time I called Mark Andrews Mark Edwards?
No.
And I couldn't stop it. I did that for like 2 years. It's embarrassing.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, it's a thing. So I guess the point is that 29, I could see the Lions. I really could see them. Let's say Newton falls to 29 or the Texas D tackle, not the big one, because, that guy, Byron Young. Those guys fall to 29 and you think these are really good football players. They should not be available. And you don't technically need a 3 tech. Really good football players. Mm-hmm. I know we talked about Darius Robinson maybe 2 shows ago or even last week. And I think we should talk about him some more. Another situation where I think if he's on the board at 29, I almost think that right now is really where the Lions would run to the podium to take him. Yeah. I think if he is available at 29. So, I thought it was a good day yesterday. I thought the first half of what the corners look like today was good. There's plenty of options. Both Florida State guys are good players. I do like Chris Abrams' Drain more than Rakestraw. I do. And the fact that they measured similarly, body size wise, I think, if you're telling me you got to take Rakestraw in round 1 or Chris Abrams' Drain in round 2, I'm going to do the round 2 option because I just think he's a better coverage player. Mm-hmm. I do think that Rakestraw hits. And, I think that's a little bit why the media likes him so much is because he does tackle, right? Yeah. So there's some of that. But what do you think? Yeah, no,
I agree with everything that you're saying. I do like just just kind of going off of the corners there real quick. Rakestraw I have at 41 on my big board, but Abrams Drain is 51, just simply because of the physicality piece. Like you mentioned, tackling. I think, and they even said it on NFL Network today, like the tackling piece is so big on the perimeter. You look at Kansas City, that's what made them so different. That's why they could blitz. And if runs got to the perimeter, it didn't matter who was blitzing and when they got aggressive, because they trusted those corners and defensive backs on the outside. So guys like, for me, like Kalen King off Penn State, don't care what he tests. I think he ran like a 4.6 40 today. He's not a top 100 player for me. He can't tackle. And there's a couple of guys like that, but Abrams Drain, he can tackle from time to time, but his coverage skills, he just reminds me so much of Cam Sutton. So I'm with you there. Yeah. But I think a player that really fell under the radar yesterday, and a lot of it is because of what Chop Robinson did, because of what Dallas Turner did, Jared Verse. I mean, 31 reps in the bench. He ran a 4.58 40. The numbers that he put up were comparable to Myles Garrett. He's not the same player as Myles Garrett, but a lot of his game is speed to power. He's got I think a good arsenal of weapons in his pass rush. I think he's one of those guys that is explosive enough off the edge. I think you can do a variety of things with him. I don't think he's as, versatile with his hand usage as or as effective with his hand usage as like Latu out of UCLA. But his ability in the run game and setting the edge is great. And I think it's far greater than Chop Robinson's, who, he had a great day. But I'm not going to drool over a defensive end running a 4.48. I'm not. Like, I know I just talked about versus 4.58, but I'm not.
Their games are so different. They're like totally different dudes.
Yeah. And I've been on this show. I've been on other shows. Like, the production is not there for Chop Robinson. And it's not there for a reason. Like, it just is. It's a thing. Like, and I understand people want to defend him and say, well, look, he sets the edge. He's hitting the tight end on a split zone and all this, but he's not displacing. He's not moving that tight end out of the way completely in the run game and making the tackle. He's just kind of eating up space and taking on a block. Like, I could take on a block. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of guys can take on a block. You need him to be effective when asked to be effective, and he's just not. So
I saw a little bit of the desire to compare his workout and Micah Parsons' workout together. And it's like, okay, Penn State guys, right? Get it. Nothing alike in the way they play. Nothing. To me, Verse has enough heavy-handedness and an ability to use his hands that I have never considered for a second that he would be available to the Lions at 29. And if he was, I mean, we're pulling hammies to get to the podium, to scream his name. So but I let trade up options, right? Like, I mean, he's a really good football player, and I know he tested great. It's just, it just feels like some of these guys are out of reach, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. But that's what I was going to say. I feel like some of these names that we're talking about, Turner, Verse, Quinyon Mitchell, Latu, Darius Robinson, and even probably Chop Robinson, I genuinely think those guys are going to be off the board by the time the Lions are on the clock. I really do. And you can throw Tyrion Arnold into that mix. I also think kind of the same thing with like a Nate Wiggins. I think those guys are going to be gone. Now, Wiggins, he ran a 4.28 40 today, but potentially pulled his groin or potentially like did something with his hip flexor. We don't necessarily know. He initially came off the field and was talking to a reporter and said, like, I think it's my groin. I felt something flare up. I felt something pop. It's on fire. Then it comes out that it's a hip flexor. And I want to be clear, a hip flexor and a groin are in two different spots. So I think there was probably some pushback, like, hey, keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything.
You've done enough.
Yeah. we'll figure this out.
Yes, you measured, you weighed in poorly, but you also ran lightning fast.
Yeah.
So,
but he's like, he's skinny, man. Like, he is skinny. And
he is.
I like Nate Wiggins. I really do. I think he's a fine player. But again, one of those guys that might just be gone by the time we get to pick 29. But one player that will potentially be there. I think after everything that's going on with the news about the foot injury with Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama, he could be a potential fit at pick 29, but he could also be a potential fit somewhere on the second day of the draft, because all signs are pointing to him potentially dropping out of the first round. And it kind of goes to what has been happening with the Lions in recent years. A few years back, they got Penei Sewell. I thought he was one of the 2 or 3 best players in the draft. They got him at 7. I felt like Aiden Hutchinson was one of the best players in the draft. I thought he was the best player in the draft. They got him at 2 years ago. You look at what happened with Brian Branch this past year. I thought he was a first-round pick. They got him at like pick 43. Mm-hmm. I just feel like some luck goes their way on draft day, and it could be one of those scenarios where Kool-Aid McKinstry falls to their lap at 29, or again, potentially in the second round, and they have some draft capital on day 2 if they wanted to move up and get him. But what's your thoughts on Kool-Aid at pick 29, or just in general for Detroit? Is he a fit here for us on the days of the 2024 NFL draft?
Yeah, he's 100% a fit. His play style is, he is a in-your-face man coverage player. I would like for him to be more physical. I would like for him to get his hands on receivers earlier. I think it's tough. If you're talking about pure physical press coverage, it's hard to find college players that really do that. Like, I'm up in your face and I'm firing hands. And, I'm going to make you release where I want you to go. You're not going where you want to go, kind of stuff. We're going to disrupt the timing of this route. So that's kind of what Alabama likes their guys to do. And there's some evidence watching him where obviously people like Terrion Arnold more than him. And I think it's just the physicality in which the two play with. I'm not saying McKinstry, I'm not saying he's soft or passive or no. It's just there are times when he'll give a receiver a free release, or he's not as physical as he needs to be or could be. But having said that, he's a really nice match for what the Lions do on defense. Is he super explosive? Unfortunately, we're never going to know, because right now he's playing with a fracture in his foot. Obviously, I don't know what he's doing as far as, I don't think he's doing anything today.
No.
Obviously, he would have run already. He's not doing anything today, but it sounds like he's going to work out at Alabama's pro day and then have surgery. And it's just like, that's a little confusing, because you're not going to have a great workout. So, right. I mean, I give him credit for doing it and all that stuff and putting some numbers out there, but I think we have to just dismiss, there are times when you just have to dismiss whatever the workout numbers are. I mean, it happened with Devin Webb. His film was good enough for him to get drafted very early. So I think with Kool-Aid, it's is this film good enough for him to be drafted at 29? And I think it is. Now, is it a sexy, splashy pick? No. But, if they buy into what he is as a player or what he could become, and it's not like you don't need a home run at 29. You just need a solid player.
Yeah. And
I think he is at that position. I think he's a solid player. I think he fits for Detroit. Whether or not the foot injury is a thing. I mean, that's not a long-term thing, but I think we need to just dismiss whatever the measurables are, whatever the 40, if he runs it, all that stuff. It's tough. But I like the fit, and I think he's a solid player. Mm-hmm. I think there's a bunch of ways that pick 29 could end up this year. There are so many ways. If you're telling me that he falls to you at pick 29 and he turns into a really good pro because he's he's a solid prospect, I can buy that. I mean, I think you could tell that story. I'd buy it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, with Kool-Aid, I had this expectation, right? Like we've been talking about him for a long time because of the name. Everybody knew who he was in recruiting circles. And then you put on the tape and you have this high expectation, and he just kind of was here. And it felt like at times he was coasting or going through the motions in certain games. And then you watch like the Tennessee game, and he's flying up the field and really explosive and dynamic and making these physical plays on the perimeter. And I love that. And then you watch him run in stride with receivers. Love that. And then there was just times where, again, he was drifting in zone space a little bit, or zone coverage and in that space. So a little concerned with all of that. But really the biggest concern is just the injury, because I know it's, a fixable injury with the Jones fracture in his right foot, but it's one of those, like, is this something that reoccurs? What is the possibility or the probability, and what's that percentage of it reoccurring down the road, or that it flares up and gives him problems? And I just wonder, do the Lions value that in any way with any players? Because I'm thinking about it, and outside of like Levi Ozarike and Josh Paschal, I can't really remember any players that they've selected that's had like any notable medical concerns, but they were both second round picks. So again, that's why I bring up Kool-Aid, because I don't know. I don't think he'd be the guy at pick 29, but with how the Lions are built for this draft with pick 61, 73, and 92, if Kool-Aid falls just a little bit somewhere into that day 2 range, like in the 40s, do they move up and get him? And I don't know. I think about it and I'm like, it feels like a potential chance that happens, because I think between what he can do in man coverage and zone coverage, he can learn cover 3 if he doesn't know it that well. I think man coverage and the cover 1 stuff, he'll be fine. If they implement some quarter stuff, I think you can still be okay there too. So I think he's a fine fit. I just worry about the medical overall, and then just really, altering the expectation, because like we knew, like I said, the expectation was up here. We had to alter it throughout the year and change it.
Stun you? It wouldn't. This would not surprise me a bit. But would it stun you if he was available with their second round pick?
It would to me. I think at 61, I think with the run on corners that we might get in the first, and teams that pass on them early in the draft, like you look at Arizona, they're going to need a corner, but they're probably not going to take one at 4. Yeah. You look at the Giants, they could look at a corner. I think the Titans could potentially look at the corner. Atlanta, if they pass at 8 and they still have pick 43, I think there's going to be a run on corners, just like there's going to be a run on running backs.
What if he runs? I know we just said to dismiss it, but what if he runs like 4.65 in the 40?
Then I'm out. On Kool-Aid, if he ran a 4.65,
let's say he runs 4.6.
I'm out.
Even in round 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
That just, Tease Tabor has me scarred forever. He ran a 4.62, couldn't recover in press man ever. Yeah. And that would worry me with Kool-Aid. And even like just watching the clip of like Tyrion Arnold today, they did the overlay with Tyrion Arnold, Quinyon Mitchell, and Nate Wiggins. And after like the 30-yard mark, the 25-yard mark, Arnold's back here and those other guys were, up here. And I just think like, okay, there goes the receiver, and there's all this separation. They hit him in stride, or, in a perfect spot where you can come back to it. There's the flag like that. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like, I don't think the Lions are a team that's going to like overvalue the 40-yard dash. I'm not saying that's the above all be all metric, but there's a reason why they do this. And there's a reason why when you watch the combine, especially with these skilled guys, or, you have these, GMs and coaches sitting there and writing this stuff down, because those times matter to them, and it matters to the process. So if he ran a 4.6 or higher, I would be concerned, especially coming off an injury with his lower body, because I feel like with time that 40 time is going to get slower after a while.
Yeah, and it just, to me, he doesn't look like a twitched up super fast player, right? So.
It makes you wonder, right? Like what is his 40-yard time? And I think that's why I wanted to talk about him, because it makes me think like, where does he end up going now because of the injury? Could he fall to 61? I guess I would be a little surprised because of the teams in front of him.
I would be surprised too, but it just feels like the Lions are getting so fortunate with some of these these fallers, so to speak. And he would be another one where you would think coming into the year, this is a top 20 player, and you get him at the end of round 2, right? And you know that there's injury stuff, but I think we agree he's a fit for what the Lions do. Not every corner in this draft is. So, you know, I think it's a nice fit. Time will tell on him. There's a lot of unknown. And this is where you just got to go back to the film and just, you know, what are his tendencies? What is he, where's his misses? How is he going to fail? Or what do you see where he won't fail? What are the things that he does well? So, yeah, I think he's a fit. I think he's a fit at 29, but you know, they have to be comfortable with this broken bone in his foot. I don't think it's a great thing to have a Jones fracture in your foot. I think it's, you know, it's one of those things that could linger. Obviously, surgery fixes things, but you know, you're taking a chance. You would be taking. That's why I think there's a chance he does slip to the end of round 2 range, just because of the unknown, and also you kind of have a static point of what Terry and Arnold ran, and I think we both, if I'm picking up what you're putting down on him, I think we think that Terry and Arnold is a twitchier, faster athlete than Kool-Aid. So, you know, it's interesting, and it's a really interesting thought.
And the thing too with Tyrion is he ran like a 4.52 today, so it makes you wonder, like, is Kool-Aid a 4.6 guy? I don't know. And I look at the list of guys like that are in the same area as Kool-Aid when they potentially get to pick 29 or even pick 61. Like we have Rakestraw out of Missouri. We have Abrams Drain out of Missouri. We have Sandra still, who ran really well and did some great things today. Max Melton was out of his mind today. Yeah. You know, and he was somebody that when you look at his time, 4.39 in the 40, 41.5-inch vertical, 11.4 broad jump, like that's a player that kind of fits, right?
That's an athlete.
That's an athlete, right? Yeah. And he's smart. So they got some more DBs going right now in the 40. I don't know. I look at the list of guys in front and around the Kool-Aid thing, and I feel like there's going to be some other names that they're going to really like. I think Cam Hart out of Notre Dame could be a 3rd rounder for them that they're going to really like. He just kind of screams a Brad Holmes type of guy. Yeah. So not in the point of the player fit at pick 29 is not to find every single player that fits. It's talking about guys that when you do a mock draft simulator or you talk with your friends or people in the league, these are players that end up being discussed at pick 29, and we got to find the way to either make them fit or make them not fit. And sure, I think we can agree that schematically he fits, but realistically,
not at 29.
Not at 29, and I don't see them forcing themselves to take him. And again, unless it's one of those where they had him ranked top 10 or something. The interview process is key, right? Like, we don't know how he's interviewing either. So, like, if he knocks their socks off in the interview room, then, okay, maybe they do get a little aggressive and take him. But I don't think so. But we do have 2 players that, as we shift away from Kool-Aid, Prospect of the Week, powered by Restore. You guys already know about our friends. And if you're new here, you haven't heard about Restore, well, let me tell you all about Restore Hyper Wellness. You know, maybe you're an athlete, maybe you got kids that are athletes, you're trying to get back into the gym, you're not recovering like you used to. Trust me, I'm not. I know Scott's not. We're all not. But we got a solution for you. Go check out our friends over at Restore Hyper Wellness here in Northville in Birmingham, Michigan. Look, guys, my son and I both go. We love it. He's a 3-sport athlete. I'm in the gym 3 to 4 times a week. They got everything you need, from compressions to cryotherapy, even specialty services such as IV drip therapy, intermuscular shots, you name it, they got it. Just one visit, you feel better, and they've got you hooked after that. They've got tons of special offers right now, things such as 2 cryotherapy sessions for $30. You can save 50% on your first IV and a whole lot more. So go check them out and get a family member, a friend, even yourself, the service you need to restore your body. Tell them I sent you from the Detroit Lions podcast so they can get you taken care of and getting you back to doing more of what you love. Don't wait around. Go check out our friends over at Restore Hyper Wellness now, and you can check them out at restore.com. So, prospect of the week, Javon Bullard, defensive back, Georgia. The safety is about to run. He just faulted, though. The safeties are so interesting. I know we're talking prospect of the week, but the safeties are so interesting, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit after this. But prospect of the week, who do you got for us? I know you're going with a Michigan guy, so I know it's going to pique the interest of the audience.
Yes, I mean, I think, at the end of the day, if you want to, coming out of the first round of the draft, if the Lions thought to themselves, and as fans of the Lions, we thought the Lions got one of the best pure football players in the entire draft today, and I was going to go this way with Mike Sainristil, the corner, and I do think, I know he's undersized. I get it all. I get it. But if we're just talking about one of the best pure football players in the entire draft, he is one of them. And I know you'd be overdrafting him at 29. So I chose not. I just wanted to throw him in there because it's something I really. It's always something I think people don't pay attention enough to. Is this is a group of decision makers that just like really good football players. They just do. They really don't care about what other people think of these players. We've seen that, right? Like, positional value be damned, and we don't care what you people think. We know what we think, and we're comfortable with where we are in our process and all that stuff. So if it's Sainristil's name coming out at 29, I'm gonna be very happy because I think he is one of the best football players in the draft. But I pivoted away from him just because I think it's easier to sell Roman Wilson to Lions fans than an undersized corner, right? For a lot of the reasons we just discussed, the Kool-Aid thing, there are a lot of corners in this draft who are good football players. Roman Wilson is built different, and I don't know if people know his high school history of having to travel. I mean, this dude's been a pro since he entered high school, right? And he is everything that has come to him, he's earned. Now I know he's small. I think he's gonna run high 4.2s, low 4.3s. Mm-hmm. I'm fascinated to see what he runs tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But from the mental makeup to the athleticism to the ability to run routes, which is not necessarily something that Michigan displayed much for him. Michigan didn't play in the SEC needing to score 50 times, 50 points a game because their defense was giving up 45 a game, and leaning on a guy like Roman Wilson. That's just not how it went. But he have like 11 or 12 touchdowns or whatever it was on 40 catches, something like that. Yep. So high leverage player, making high leverage plays. But when I look at him and I know he's redundant a touch to Amon-Ra, he's a more explosive version of that. But I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Like, if you project Roman Wilson into the Lions offense, let me sell it a different way. If you project Roman Wilson into the Kansas City Chiefs offense, what does it do for that offense? And I think everybody goes, they'd be a lot more dynamic, and his speed, man, he'd be kind of a home run hitter for them.
Yep.
He could do the same thing in Detroit. Mm-hmm. And he could open up, with Jameson running and open up parts of the field. He would open up large parts of the field for Amon-Ra and for Sam Laporta. And then he would do things for himself, but it's more that he's such a reliable, efficient route runner on top of being a guy with some just crazy top end speed. So he is the total package.
Yep.
Just built in a small frame. So, I know that I can feel eyes rolling, even though it's you and I talking. I can feel you're going to draft Roman Wilson in the first round. They do have a need there. Now, it's not as big a need as edge or interior offensive line or, say, cornerback, but, he's a dynamic player who's got an incredible story. He's a pro. He is a hard worker. He's everything that you could possibly want. And to me, he screams Lions player. He just does. The grit, and the work and all of that stuff on top of all the athleticism and all of the great stuff that comes with him. Again, I don't think we're absolutely saying that this is who we want the Lions to pick, because there's so many. Yeah. But it's just an option, and it's like, all the big names are going to be gone. Romo Jones and Harrison and Neighbors and all these guys are going to be gone. But Roman Wilson's electric, and he is explosive, and he would really add an element in their offense that it's not that it's missing, but if you look at Goff's history, he really likes receivers who are trustworthy and are supposed to be exactly where they're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Roland
Wilson,
route runners. Yes, like super efficient route runners that he can trust completely and implicitly. And Roman Wilson is that guy. And then it's, dude runs 4.3.
Yep.
Please, who's your guy?
Well, and Vegas has got him at an over-under of 4.32 in the 40. And much of that is because when he was a ninth grader, 13 or 14 years of age, he ran a 100-meter dash in 10.86 seconds. There's one that it was like pouring rain in Hawaii, because that's where he went to high school, and he ran, like, I think this was like 2 years later, and he ran like in the 10.6 range when it was pouring down rain outside. Like, that's a wet track. You're not getting all the grip that you need. Just goes to show. And I know people are going to go, these guys are crazy. Pick 29. Is it really that crazy, though, when you think about what's going on in San Francisco with Brandon Ayuk, depending on what happens there, all the injuries to Deebo Samuel, George Kittle's not getting any younger. They need another weapon for Brock Purdy. They went to the Michigan well last year with Ronnie Bell in San Francisco. Do they do it again with Roman Wilson at pick 31? You look at Kansas City at pick 32. We already know what they need. They need pass catchers. You look at Baltimore at 30. I mean, Rashad Bateman is okay, but OBJ was on a 1-year deal. Mark Andrews is coming back from injury. Do you need another pass catcher? Probably in that offense. You look in the second round, though. Carolina at 33. What do they need? A guy in the short areas of the field. A guy that can run after the catch. A guy that can run deep and is an efficient route runner. It can't be Adam Thielen. It can't be, just Jonathan Mingo. They need guys at 33. Yeah. New England at 34. The Chargers at 37. You mean to tell me Jim Harbaugh, if they pass at receiver, Joe Alt in the first round and Roman Wilson at 37? That sounds like a Jim Harbaugh draft to me. I mean, it really does. Yeah. Yeah,
so that I love what you're saying, because it's I'm
just backing you up.
That's why I love it. It's not a reach to take him at 29. It's just not.
No. He's a fine player, man. He truly is. He is one of the 50, 55 best players in this draft without question. When you put it all together, and some guys are going to just be higher on other teams' boards, and you're not going to have 29 first round grades on these players. You're going to have 10 to 15, and then you're going to have a bunch of guys, and you organize them by how they fit your team, and that's how the rank goes. That's what the Lions are going to do. And we got to trust them at what they do at 29. And another player that could fit at pick 29 is somebody that blew up the combine yesterday by the name of Braden Fisk out of Florida State, who I know people are going to go, that's nuts. There's no way. He's got 31-inch arms. I hear you. I'm with you in that regard. I think, the short arms is something. But I was talking to my guys over at Cover One down at the Senior Bowl, and they pulled up a name that kind of compares to him, Kyle Williams. And you think of like short arms, but he makes it work. He's going to grind. He's explosive, and he's just going to fit. And I feel like Braden Fisk at 29, it sounds crazy, but I pulled this up yesterday from Next Gen Stats. And on the day of the combine last year, or it was the day the Lions drafted Jack Campbell, but they pulled this also the day that he ran. Campbell earned the highest athleticism score among off-ball linebackers in the draft last year with an overall score of 89. He ran the quickest 3-cone drill at the position over the last 5 combines. His overall draft score from Next Gen Stats was 82. His athleticism score was 89, and his production score was 74. For Braden Fisk, they threw it up there as the first defensive tackle to lead his position group in 40-yard dash, vertical jump, and broad jump since Tank Johnson did in 2004. Tank Johnson, former Bear, but he had a he ran a 4.78 40. He had a 33.5-inch vertical and a 9.9 broad jump. He also had a crazy 10-yard split. But with it, his production was a 77, around the same as Campbell. Athleticism was 89, the same as Campbell, and his overall draft score is 82, same as Jack Campbell. So I'm not saying that this is the protocol and the threshold that they draft players from, but it's worth noting because if they end up going that route, it could be a potential threshold and something that they look for, maybe a certain score off of the athletic testing and all the analytics. I don't know how much analytic data they use in the Lions draft room, but teams do value some of that, and I think the Lions value some of that. So when you think of Braden Fisk, I mean, explosive pass rusher, great first step, high motor, very disruptive. He's versatile. I think he could play as a 2-eye, a 3-tech. He could bump out to a 5 if they needed him to, but he just kind of fits what this team is looking for. Experienced player, 58 career games, 40 career starts, former baseball player. He used to throw a fastball at 75 miles an hour. He was a former pitcher. He started varsity baseball as a freshman. So I think he's an interesting player at 6'3", 6'4", 292 pounds. A little bit undersized, but the explosiveness, it works. And it showed at the Senior Bowl. He won down there. It wouldn't surprise me by any means if at pick 29, or even a potential trade down and then Braden Fisk, if it's there, if that's the guy. And I love what I've seen from him, and I think he is somebody as a player of the week, seeing what he's done at the Combine, and then just looking back at his tape, he screams Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, and a high-level football player for Detroit and probably a lot of other teams.
Yeah, and to me, the arm length is, I don't, people are going to ding him for the short arms, but playing inside like that, I almost think sometimes if you're quick, the whole thing inside is who gets their hands on who the quickest, right? So I don't care that he has short arms. I don't think it matters so much in his play.
Yeah.
Right. Like I just, he wins because he moves different than other players. He's quicker. So, I don't think that it matters so much about the arm length, but he's dynamic. He's one of those guys that it's going to be very interesting for, because you know how it works. It's at the Senior Bowl that, you do a bunch of one-on-ones. He was virtually unblockable this year.
Yep.
It doesn't fully, totally translate to all right. So I'm going to, as an O-line coach, there's some O-line bias. The whole one-on-one thing is set up for defenders to beat offensive linemen. It just is. And I say that as an O-line coach. Right? Like
I say way as a D-line coach.
Yeah. It's, hey, figure it out, O-line. But
right.
So there's a little bit of, they give them a lot of room to work laterally. And a player like Fisk is so quick and he can turn so sharply that if you give him an extra foot to work with to widen a guard, he's going to beat him. Yeah. He just is. And he did that. It's not his fault. It's just, over and over at the Senior Bowl, he beat guys one-on-one because he just was quicker, really good hands, powerful, all that stuff. He was very difficult to block. So he had a great Senior Bowl week. He has had, I imagine he's no longer in Indy. He had a remarkable couple days at the Combine. What else can we ask him to do? Right? Nothing. He's blown the doors off of the two opportunities that were presented in front of him. And then it's a matter of, does the film match that stuff?
Yep.
And I think it does. And I think there are moments on the film where it's very obvious it does. Mm-hmm. I wonder about Florida State's scheme and what exactly they were asking him to do. And that's a part of it too. That if you bring Fisk into Detroit and you just ask him to do the things that he's really good at doing, There's enough there where he could be very, very productive.
Yeah.
And even if that's not individual production for himself, the things he does is disruptive enough that it might just make the players around him significantly more productive.
Yes.
So that's where does it matter who's getting the pressures? No. If as a group, he's really difficult to block. Aleem McNeil's difficult to block. Hutch is difficult to block. All that stuff. If you throw him in the mix, and if it makes everybody's job easier, guess what? They're getting home sooner, and it's easier for the corners to stay in coverage because they don't have to stay in coverage as long. So it all ties together.
Yep.
I mean, I like what I saw. If all we're doing is asking these guys to win what's in front of them right now, he's done a great job of it. Maybe as much as anybody else in the process. He's had a great process.
Yeah, and I think for a position group where, Johnny Newton up at the top, he's got the fracture in his foot. That's, and he played on that, which give him credit, all tough as all can be. If he ended up falling to 29, which I think is possible, I think the Lions would be very intrigued by him because I think at this point in the game, Byron Murphy's going to be the first defensive tackle off the board just simply because you're getting a healthy player. You don't have to worry about what if. But Johnny Newton, great tape. But those were the consensus top 2 interior defensive linemen. And then it was a little bit of a wild card. Was it Devondre Sweat? Was it Chris Jenkins? The biggest thing was Sweat. Can you trust him to keep his weight down in the NFL? 366 pounds. I don't know. I love the tape. The tape is great. And the fit here in Detroit would be great. If they took him at 61, would love it. I don't know if he's going to be there at 61. That's the other thing. But it was just kind of like a wild card after the top 2 defensive tackles. And I think Braden Fisk has done enough at this point in the game. You could justify taking him in the back end of the first round, early in the second round, but also making him the third, maybe even the second defensive tackle off of the board. Because, like you said, great pre-draft process, great tape. What are we basing his overall grade on now? Projection? You can't really do that. You have to. There's a reason why you're grading the player. You can't grade projection. You have to grade results. And results are he's had great film. He's had a great pre-draft process. So I think he's a top 50 player in the draft at this point. And I really think the Lions just make sense because he's going to be faced with a lot of one-on-one situations. And I don't want to hear Lions fans say, well, he played with Jared Verse, a top 15 player. Well, he's playing with Aiden Hutchinson if he comes to Detroit and Aleem McNeil and whoever the other edge rusher is at that time, whether it's Pascal, Houston, Kaminsky, whoever.
Yeah.
Now you throw Braden Fisk in there. You have 2 of the most explosive interior defensive linemen in the league just off of their numbers and their tape. So I think that they would take a liking to a player like this if they wanted to add defensive tackle help, if they feel like that's a need. I still feel like my gut at 29 is going to be an offensive lineman. I just do. But that's probably a conversation for later to the draft. But that's it. That's my prospect of the week. Braden Fisk out of Florida State. And then Roman Wilson out of Michigan. And of course, check out our friends over at Restore.com. But that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't have very much else other than just the NFL Combine live watching reactions if we wanted to sit here and talk more ball. But if you're good, I'm good. Whatever you want to do. Javon Moore.
Early next week, we'll wrap up the Combine itself.
Mm-hmm.
And, winners kind of stuff. And then we'll get back on our normal stuff maybe at the end of next week. And I think that'll be good.
Cool. Well, look, it's always great being able to do this show. We always appreciate everybody's support and generosity, whether it be the comments, the rating of 5 stars, whatever it is. But if you haven't done so, please do so by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms. And of course, follow us on Twitter or X at Russ NFL Draft, at Bischoff_Scott. This will do it for the week of the Combine Day 2. Day 3 will be tomorrow with running backs, quarterbacks, and receivers. Sunday is offensive linemen and the special teams guys. So you guys can enjoy all of that. I'm sure there'll be more videos coming out here on the Detroit Lions podcast page. But he's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. that'll do it for us right here on the Detroit Lions podcast.